They were amazing partners from the start, and Sylvia at the very start have really transformed something into, we're kind of quite used to having kind of a Google Ocean and things like that, but it wasn't quite like that when we started, and it was how I solved a big problem for IUCN in effect. And it wasn't me solving it, it was Google and all our friends in a sense, but there was a real reality about this. So when I came in, our way of communicating marine protected areas, which was fit for purpose at the time before me, was to produce some really thick, big publications and put maps in them, and there was nothing digital. So actually we actually went to the basement of the World Bank to find the guide to see if we could get the files for the maps. It was rather like Indiana Jones and the looking for the Ark in that long massive warehouse, okay? And I called two things happened simultaneously, one before the other actually, but I'll tell you about the second one first, which is I called a summit of when I became vice chair in Washington, and John was very gracious to lend us National Geographic for the summit, and we brought together to try and invigorate the kind of marine protection process at a global scale. To get maps for that, I actually had to buy the maps off UNEP to put them on the wall, and they were then inaccurate, and that was our connectivity for marine protection. And I actually wanted to find a way in which we could actually connect to our members. So rather than, how many copies can you make on a Xerox machine, the reality is that IUCN operates with 200 governments. We have 10,000 specialists, and we have over 1,200 members. So Xerox machines and hard copies were out, and we had to find a new way of doing this, and a way that would really work. So that was coming together, realizing we had a big problem, and a year before, when I became vice chair, I made a trip, and it was a result of a conversation that occurred on Bristol Temple Mead Station, of all places. I was a busy man then, and the guy I was meeting was going in the opposite direction, and we got off the train for 20 minutes, met in the cafe, and it was the guy, do you remember the Blue Planet series of the BBC? This was the guy who brought the Blue Planet diaries to everyone, John Witham, who I was at university with. And I was saying, we've got to work out how we deal with this. And he said, we had the discussion about why can't we just go to Google and talk to Google? Unbeknown, Sylvia, and we've heard the fact that Sylvia had the prize giving in Barcelona and everything. And so I flew across to Washington with one main aim on my first meeting, which was on my first day, which was to see Sylvia, and Sylvia was at CI then, and we were surrounded by everybody, and we got 10 minutes alone, and that was my 10 minutes to make the pitch. And Sylvia said, I really need to speak to you about something. And I went, no, I need to speak to you about something. And I said, you go first. And Sylvia said, I've just been in Barcelona, we need to do something about Google Earth and put an ocean on it. And it was like, damn, I've just come across the Atlantic to have that discussion. And so I undertook then that what we would do is we would try and bring all the MPAs out of this difficult situation of lack of access onto Google, and that we would try and do more to actually bring the whole process together so that we could do what we're doing now. Google's a fantastic partner of ours, and we've had workshops here as well with members working with Google Earth Outreach and getting that one-to-one contact. And that, for me, is about moving from a very difficult situation of inaccessibility to something which was going to be incredibly accessible. So basically the concept that we had, which became fruition with Sylvia's leadership, so I was on the Council of Advisors at Google, was to actually take what we were doing. So when I came in, they wanted me to do another 4-volume set, and I said, we're not going to do it that way, we're going to do it this way. We're going to put it onto, these are the original slides, onto laptops and ultimately onto handheld devices. Google would be a great partner, and it's going to be better information, better decision making, and a public good. So Sylvia and I made that undertaking in that meeting, and I walked back into IUCN after my first meeting in Washington, and they said, how did it go? And I went, it went great, we're going to rebuild Google Earth. And they thought I was completely mad. But that actually then transpired through the process that Sylvia led, and we found a complete new connectivity. So this was about really taking the real world and putting it into the virtual world. And it was on the 2nd of February 2009 that we launched Google Ocean, Ocean and Google Earth. But before that, it's worth remembering where we were at the last Congress, because that was actually after the last Congress. And in Barcelona, we actually managed to get up the MPA layer for the first time, the first kind of connectivity. And then we have Google Ocean, and now this. And that's the launch with Sylvia doing her stuff in San Francisco. And of course now you can stand inside Google Earth and stand inside an ocean. This is at the Blue Planet Pavilion, and this is one of the liquid galaxies. And we've now switched on the MPA layer, so you can go and play with all the MPAs around the world. So you got to understand the political speed of IUCN and things might move slowly, and here we've done something really spectacular with our partners and being part of a bigger process, thinking outside the box, that we've moved from quite a difficult situation of accessibility to everyone having access, and 1 billion people having access to, 1 billion plus people having access to these types of things. I don't want it to stop there, so I'm always driving forward, and you've heard some of the ideas that I also am in a very lucky position to help with outreach. I sit on top of the largest aggregation of ocean acidification research in the world. And we're now working with Google to give them a voice as well, and the challenges of how you make acidification come live. So it's not just protected areas, it's chemistry. How do you make chemistry become live and realize how serious it is for the plight of the oceans? And ultimately, I want to see MPAs on Google Maps. Whenever you do a search, I want to see the ocean actually having the MPAs in it, so you get a sense of place, and we start to put some of these features that you see on land all the time. Whenever you see the ocean, you see protection, you see what's happening. So that we're on, I think, an evolutionary process. So let me show you some of the stuff that we're doing. So as kind of Vice Chair of the Commission, I get put in some pretty unique and amazing opportunities. One of the things we've been thinking about is how can you actually bring a lot of the country, a lot of the world with us. And there are always new opportunities. And just earlier this year, I was in a very fortunate position to be asked to open the first forum of marine advisors for the Commonwealth in London. And they gave me carte blanche for what I wanted to do, and I wanted to really kind of excite them about things and show them something different that they didn't expect. So this is what a meeting of the Commonwealth looks like inside an ex-royal palace. There's more gold leaf in that room than I think I've seen anywhere else. And they're all ambassadors representing their countries. We had about just over half the Commonwealth present. And that's the view from the podium, a slightly scary view. And so what did we do? Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump out of this because we have a slight glitch in this animation, and I'm going to play it in media player, and this also actually shows what we do.